My mom thought my dad was completely out of our lives, but she had no idea that I was still secretly talking to him, and the truth I discovered about her new boyfriend slowly started changing everything. My name is Sarah, and my life began falling apart the day my parents separated. Before that, our house felt normal, not perfect, but safe. My dad worked long hours, but he always tried to spend time with me, and my mom used to laugh a lot. Back then, everything felt simple until the arguments started. At first, they were small disagreements, but later, they turned into loud fights that filled the entire house. I remember sitting in my room, listening to their voices through the walls, feeling nervous without understanding why things were changing so fast. One night, the fight became worse than ever, and the next morning, my dad packed some of his things and left the house. I watched him walk away, and that was the first time I felt real fear about the future. After that day, the house felt empty. My mom tried to act strong, but I could see how stressed she was. Bills were piling up, and life was not easy anymore. Months later, she told me she met someone new. His name was Mark. She said he was kind and that he wanted to help us build a better life. I tried to accept it, but something about him made me uncomfortable. From the first moment he walked into our house, he acted like he already belonged there. He smiled a lot and tried to be friendly, but I always felt something strange around him. Over time, he started coming over more often. He sat with us during dinner, talked with my mom for hours, and slowly it felt like my life was changing again, but this time not in a good way. What my mom did not know was that I was still talking to my dad sometimes late at night when everyone was asleep. I would call him and tell him about my day. He always asked me the same question: how are things really going at home? At first, I told him everything was fine, but slowly I started telling him the truth about Mark and about how uncomfortable I felt. My dad became quiet whenever I mentioned him, like he was thinking about something important but did not want to worry me. Days passed, and small things started to bother me more and more. Mark started making decisions in our house, telling my mom what was better for us, and sometimes even criticizing the way I acted. I tried to stay quiet, but deep inside, I felt like something was wrong. One night I woke up late and went to the kitchen for water, and I saw Mark standing there looking at old family photos, the ones that had my dad in them when he saw me. He quickly put them down and gave me a strange smile. That moment stayed in my mind for a long time. Later that night, I called my dad again and told him what happened, and for the first time he sounded worried. He told me to be careful, and that there were things about Mark that my mom might not know hearing. That made me feel uneasy, because suddenly everything felt more serious than before. After that, I started paying attention to everything happening in the house. The way Mark talked, the questions he asked, and the way he reacted. When certain topics came up slowly, I started realizing that sometimes the truth about people takes time to appear, and when it does, it can change everything in ways you never expected. After that night, I could not stop thinking about what my dad had said about Mark. Something about him felt wrong, and now I was starting to notice more things that did not make sense. He asked a lot of questions about money, about the house, and sometimes about my dad too. But he always tried to make those questions sound normal. One evening, I overheard my mom and Mark talking in the living room. They thought I was asleep, but I was not. Mark was asking my mom about her savings and about some papers related to the house. My mom sounded confused, but she trusted him, so she answered his questions. Hearing that made me feel uncomfortable, because it felt like he was trying to learn too much about our life. A few days later, I called my dad again and told him everything I had heard. He stayed quiet for a moment, and then he told me something that shocked me. He said that Mark used to work with someone he knew years ago, and that there had been problems involving money and lies. My heart started beating faster when I heard that, because suddenly everything started making sense. The strange behavior, the questions, the way he looked at our family photos, it all felt connected. From that day, I started paying even more attention to what was happening inside the house. Mark began spending more time there, almost like he was trying to slowly take control of everything. My mom seemed happy, but I could tell she was also tired and stressed from work and bills. One night something happened that made my fear grow stronger. I walked into the hallway and heard Mark talking on the phone. His voice was low, but I could hear enough to understand that he was talking about money and about waiting for the right time. When he noticed me standing there, he quickly ended the call and smiled at me like nothing happened, but that smile made me nervous. Later that night, I told my dad about it, and this time he sounded serious. He told me that I needed to be careful, and that if something felt wrong, I should trust my instincts. Hearing my dad say that made me realize that the situation might be more dangerous than I thought. Days passed, and the tension in the house slowly grew. I started noticing how Mark would sometimes watch me, like he was trying to figure out what I knew, and that made me even more careful about what I said or did. But deep inside, I had a feeling that sooner or later, the truth about him was going to come out, and when it did, everything in our lives would change again. After that moment, things in the house started feeling heavier every day. I tried acting normal, but inside I was always thinking about what Mark was really planning. My mom trusted him completely, and that made everything harder, because I did not want to hurt her or create another problem in our family. But at the same time, I could not ignore what I was seeing and hearing. One afternoon, I came home earlier than usual, and the house was quiet. I thought no one was there, but when I walked closer to the living room, I heard Mark again talking on the phone this time. His voice sounded serious and a little angry. He was saying that things were taking longer than expected, and that soon everything would belong to him. Hearing those words made my heart start beating fast, because I realized he might be planning something bigger than I thought. I quietly went back to my room and called my dad again, and told him exactly what I had heard this time. He did not stay silent. He told me that I needed to stay calm, and that he was going to find out more about Mark, because now even he was sure that something was wrong. Days passed slowly, and the tension in the house continued to grow. Mark started acting nicer than usual, almost like he was trying too hard to look perfect in front of my mom. But when my mom was not around, his behavior felt colder and different. Sometimes he would ask me strange questions about whether I still talked to my dad or not, and I always pretended that I did not, because I knew it was safer that way. One evening everything changed. My mom received a call while we were having dinner, and after that call, her expression became serious. She said she needed to talk to Mark privately. I could feel something important was about to happen. They went into the other room and started talking quietly, but their voices slowly became louder and louder. I could hear my mom asking questions, and Mark trying to explain something that did not make sense. A few minutes later, my mom walked out looking shocked and upset. She looked at me, and then back at Mark, and in that moment I realized that she had finally started seeing the truth too. That night was the first time I saw my mom cry like that. Not because of my dad, not because of money, but because she realized someone she trusted had not been honest with her. Mark tried to explain himself, but things were no longer the same. The next day he left the house, and for the first time in a long time, the house felt quiet again. Not the sad kind of quiet, but the kind that feels like something heavy has finally been lifted. Weeks passed after that, and slowly life started becoming calmer. My mom and I began rebuilding our routine again, and even though things were not perfect, we were finally honest with each other about everything, including the fact that I had been talking to my dad the whole time. Instead of getting angry, my mom understood why I did it, because deep down, she knew I was only trying to protect our family. Looking back now, I realized something important. Sometimes the people we trust the most can hide the biggest truths. But sooner or later, the truth always finds its way out. And when it does, it gives us a chance to start again, stronger than before. I thought everything was finally getting better after Mark left our house, but I had no idea that the biggest truth about him was still waiting to be discovered. A few days after he disappeared, my mom was still trying to understand what had really happened. She kept saying that she never imagined someone could lie like that. I tried to comfort her, but deep inside I also had many questions, because Mark had left too quickly. Almost like he was hiding from something one evening, while cleaning the house, my mom found a small bag that Mark had forgotten in the closet. At first, we thought it was nothing important, but when she opened it, we found some papers inside, and those papers changed everything. My mom started reading them slowly, and her expression suddenly changed. I could see fear and shock in her eyes. The papers showed that Mark had been involved in several problems related to money and false identities. He had moved from place to place meeting people and slowly gaining their trust before disappearing again. My heart started beating fast because it meant that our family was not the first one he had tried to fool. My mom sat down quietly holding those papers, and for a moment the room felt completely silent. She realized how close we had been to something much worse than we understood that night. She told me something I will never forget. She said sometimes life sends us warnings through small feelings, the kind of feelings we try to ignore, but those feelings are often trying to protect us. Hearing that made me realize that all the moments when I felt uncomfortable around Mark were not just imagination, they were signs weeks later. My mom decided to contact the authorities and give them the information we had found. She said she wanted to make sure that no other family would go through the same situation. Slowly, life started moving forward again. My mom focused on rebuilding our home, and I continued talking to my dad openly this time, without hiding anything. Our family was not perfect, but we were stronger because we had learned something important. Trust is powerful, but listening to your instincts can sometimes save you from the biggest mistakes. And even now, when I think about that time, I realize how close we were to losing everything without even knowing it. Months passed after everything that happened with Mark, but the memories of that time still stayed with me in ways I did not expect. Our house slowly started feeling like a home again, not perfect, but peaceful. My mom worked hard every day, trying to rebuild the life that had been shaken by everything that happened. Sometimes I could still see the pain in her eyes when she thought about how much she had trusted someone who was not honest. But at the same time, I also saw something stronger inside her, something that had grown after surviving that difficult time. One evening, we were sitting together talking about the past, and my mom suddenly thanked me. She said that if I had not listened to my instincts, and if I had not kept telling the truth about what I felt, things might have ended very differently. Hearing her say that made me realize that even though I was just a kid during all of that, my actions had helped protect our family from something much worse. Later that night, I called my dad and told him everything that had happened since the day he left the house. We talked for a long time about life, about mistakes, and about how families sometimes break, but can still find a way to stay connected in different ways. That conversation made me feel lighter than I had felt in a long time, because for the first time I understood that even though our family had changed, it had not completely fallen apart. Time kept moving forward, and slowly, new memories started replacing the old painful ones. But I never forgot the lessons that time taught me. Sometimes, people enter your life pretending to be something they are not. Sometimes trust can blind us, and sometimes the truth hides behind small details that most people ignore. But the biggest lesson I learned was this: your instincts matter more than you think, and the quiet voice inside you that says something is wrong is often trying to protect you. Even now, when I look back at that part of my life, I realize that those difficult moments did not just break our family. They also made us stronger and more aware of the people we allow into our lives, and maybe that was the real reason everything happened, not to destroy us, but to teach us how to protect what truly matters.